An order for 300 airplanes. It's a game changer for Airbus, giving the trans-European aircraft maker a leg up in its never-ending rivalry with US competitor Boeing. China's Xi Jinping signed the deal during his visit with French President Emmanuel Macron, a move that seems to have caught EU policymakers a little off guard. Macron, together with German Chancellor Angela Merkel and EU Commission President Jean-Claude Juncker, is cautious about China's multi-billion-euro Belt and Road Initiative, also called the New Silk Road Project. It's aimed at bringing China closer to other partners internationally and making it a stronger force in global trade. In Paris, the Europeans made a strong appeal to China to cooperate. We have to have trust in multilateral cooperation and the fact that everyone wins. Multilateral cooperation does not work if one partner's win is another partner's loss. We have seen that before, and that's why I'm a firm believer and convinced it's worth fighting for it. Xi responded that the EU and China should advance together, despite distrust that has recently hindered progress. That includes business with Chinese telecom equipment maker Huawei, which has been accused of being in Beijing's pocket. The US has banned the tech giant from its domestic infrastructure projects. The EU is also currently discussing whether or not to allow the Chinese company to help build its new 5G networks. In Paris, the European leaders and Xi set the stage for the upcoming EU-China summit. But the real work will happen behind closed doors over the course of the next few weeks. Merkel and Macron want all 28 EU members to assume a common stance on China. That won't be easy to push through, as some member states are eager to strike deals with the Asian superpower. Last week, Italy became the first member state to become an official partner in the New Silk Road project when it signed deals worth over $7 billion, including partnerships between China and the ports of Trieste and Genoa.
Straight to Paris then, where we find DW correspondent Rebecca Ritters. Welcome, Rebecca. So what else have we learned from this joint press conference?
Well, pretty much what was in that report is what we got in the press conference here. But I will say that the mood was quite convivial. So the four leaders seemed very comfortable with each other. By all accounts, it looked as if the talks went quite well. How much ground was covered in just an hour's meeting, it remains to be seen. But it seems that I think everyone got what he or she wanted from the meeting. They all spoke of multilateralism. That was the key word being thrown around, the need for to work together, China and the EU, and of course Macron spearheading that unified approach from the EU.
So President Macron seems to be giving with one hand and taking with the other. On the one hand, he said, thank you very much for your massive Airbus order. But on the other hand, just slow down. That's Europe, needs to be careful about dealing with the Chinese.
Yes, that is sort of the confusing message that's coming from President Macron at the moment. As you say, with one hand, very happy to receive the sale of the 300 Airbuses there, and on the other hand, saying we're worried about Chinese influence. But that is the big problem when we talk about EU-China policy, is that nobody really wants to let go of the trade that China has to offer, the slice of the pie. Everyone wants their bit. China is the EU's biggest trading partner, and therefore it's very important to Europe, to all the individual nations that make up Europe and to the bloc as a whole. So, but then, as you say, it's a fine balance, balancing then what you're saying is too much influence in the region, and we want more of a say. So that's where Macron comes with his, we need to be forming a united front.
And how far along are those plans to form a united front to get all 28 members singing from the same hymn book?
Well, I think we're really at the beginning of that. And Macron did say at the end of a leaders' summit last week that the era of naivety towards China is over. Perhaps we are seeing the beginning of that era being over indeed. He called this sort of emergency summit, if you will, just a little over 2 weeks, until the the big EU summit in April, and then German Chancellor Angela Merkel also spoke of when Germany takes over the presidency of the EU, Chinese-EU policy EU-China relations will be top of the agenda. So perhaps there is some truth to what Macron said at the summit, and that the era of naivety is over. How far we're into that yet remains to be seen.
Rebecca Ritters in Paris, thank you.